Two people can love each other deeply and still be divided about almost everything required to build a life together. They can agree on their affection and disagree about money. They can cherish one another and fight over time. They can promise lifelong devotion while remaining uncertain about family boundaries, household responsibility, priorities, and direction. The love may be genuine. The confusion may be genuine too. This is where our familiar definition becomes incomplete. We say marriage is two people who love each other. That is beautiful, but it is not sufficient. Love can begin the union. Love cannot organize the entire union. Emotion tells you that this person matters. It does not automatically tell you whose responsibility must be carried, which expense comes first, how a decision will be made, or what happens when two sincere preferences collide. Do not misunderstand me. Love is indispensable. We are not diminishing love. We are giving love a structure strong enough to endure daily pressure. Love supplies warmth, but shared principles supply order. Warmth makes a home desirable. Order makes a shared life workable. Imagine a beautiful house filled with affection but built without plans. No rooms have been assigned. No maintenance responsibilities have been clarified. No household rules have been agreed upon. The people inside care for one another, but nobody knows who repairs what, who decides what, or where the family is going. Soon, every unspoken expectation becomes a private law, and every private law becomes a future argument. Affection fills the house, but affection cannot administer it. So here is the governing question. When feelings provide no clear instruction, what decides what the couple does next? When love says, stay together, but money, time, relatives, fatigue, and competing ambitions demand a specific decision, what principle governs that decision? If the answer is merely whoever speaks loudest, withdraws longest, earns most, or pressures hardest, then the marriage is already being governed, just not by agreement. Many marital struggles are not proof that love has disappeared. They may reveal that agreement was never made explicit. The couple assumed that love would answer questions. Love was never designed to answer. We are going to build 7 agreements: purpose, secure identity, character, roles, conflict, stewardship, and legacy. Each one governs a distinct part of shared life. Each one will give you a diagnostic question and a practical action. Together they will move marriage from romantic assumption to deliberate partnership, and finally into a 1-page constitution you can write, discuss, practice, and review. The issue then is not whether your marriage is governed. Every marriage is. The issue is whether you have decided together what will govern yours. The answer is agreement. Not agreement as a pleasant feeling, but agreement as a governing structure. Principles both spouses accept, responsibilities both understand, boundaries both honor, and procedures both follow when a decision must be made. Government in marriage is not one person controlling another. Control concentrates power. Agreement establishes order. One produces submission to personality, the other creates accountability to principle. Every couple already has an operating system. It appears in repeated behavior: how affection is expressed, how silence is interpreted, how money is handled, how relatives are treated, and what happens when tension enters the room. Much of that system was inherited from childhood. One spouse learned that problems must be discussed immediately. The other learned that discussion should wait until emotions settle. Neither pattern is automatically wrong, but neither should become law merely because it is familiar. An inherited pattern says, this is how my family did it. An examined constitution asks, what have we decided will serve our marriage? Do you see the difference? History may provide material, but the couple must provide consent. You can honor what formed you without allowing every old habit to govern what you are building. Write this into your thinking. What remains unexamined will often operate by default. Pressure does not usually create your governing system. Pressure reveals it. Therefore, wisdom makes the agreements explicit before the difficult moment arrives. There are 7. Keep a private score as you hear them, clear, assumed, or absent. First, shared purpose gives the marriage direction. Second, secure identity prevents either spouse from demanding that the other manufacture worth, peace, or completeness. Third, proven character creates the trust required for promises to survive inconvenience. Fourth, Clarified roles distribute responsibility without confusing function with human value. Fifth, regulated conflict protects unity by establishing how disagreement will be handled. Sixth, coordinated stewardship aligns time, money, attention, energy, and opportunity with stated priorities. Seventh, deliberate legacy determines which values the household will repeat until they become an inheritance. Purpose directs, identity stabilizes, character secures, roles organize, conflict rules protect, stewardship aligns, legacy transmits. This is not 7 unrelated pieces of advice. It is one governing system. Now consider your marriage honestly. Which agreement is already clear? Which one exists only as an assumption? Which one becomes visible only after somebody is disappointed? Do not condemn yourselves. Locate yourselves. A map does not insult a traveler. It shows the traveler where movement must begin. Before we finish, these 7 agreements will become a written constitution. But for now, identify the one area most in need of definition or repair. Is it direction, identity, trust, responsibility, disagreement, resources, or inheritance? And we must begin with direction, because no constitution can govern a partnership that has never decided where it is going. The first agreement then is purpose. What destination gives meaning to this shared life? Purpose is not a schedule, a profession, or a collection of personal ambitions. Shared purpose is the contribution, culture, and direction 2 people deliberately intend to build through their life together. It answers a larger question than, what do I want? It asks, what are we here to cultivate, offer, and become? Now watch this carefully. Unity does not require uniformity. 2 spouses do not need identical personalities, occupations, interests, or methods. One may initiate quickly while the other evaluates patiently. One may contribute publicly while the other strengthens what happens privately. Difference is not the enemy. Difference becomes threatening only when there is no shared destination to give it meaning. Agreement about direction makes methods negotiable. And purpose is not the same as a goal. Buying a home is a goal. Reaching a financial milestone is a goal. Relocating, completing an education, or building a business may be a goal. But purpose explains what the home, money, location, education, or business is meant to serve. Goals can be completed, delayed, or replaced. Purpose remains the standard by which those goals are chosen. Imagine 2 strong rowers in the same boat. Both are sincere, both are disciplined, both are working until their muscles ache. But one is pulling toward one shoreline while the other is aiming elsewhere. Their strength does not produce progress. It produces exhaustion. The problem is not laziness. The problem is unagreed direction. Effort without alignment can make a marriage busy without making it fruitful. A shared mission becomes a reference point for ordinary choices. Which work opportunity deserves a yes? Where should you live? What kind of hospitality should characterize your home? How will service, children, caregiving, rest, and unexpected opportunity fit into the life you are building? Purpose will not remove every trade-off. It will tell you what the trade-off is for. It will not make every decision easy. It will make the decision answerable to something larger than the strongest preference in the room. There is substantial interest in marriage teaching that emphasizes shared purpose, personal completeness, and character over romantic performance. That interest does not prove that purpose automatically produces a durable marriage. It does reveal a serious hunger for a vision of marriage larger than maintaining appearances or pursuing continuous emotion. So ask each other, what contribution should become possible because we joined our lives? What atmosphere should people consistently experience in our home? Which priorities must receive our best time, strength, and opportunity? If our preferences compete, what larger direction should govern the choice? Now begin the first clause of your constitution with one sentence. Together we intend to build a home and life that do not rush to decorate the language. Name the direction. Make it clear enough to guide sacrifice and broad enough to include both people's gifts. But a common mission creates another question. What must each spouse bring internally so that purpose does not become a demand for the other person to supply identity? The second agreement is secure identity. Purpose tells you where you are going together. Identity determines what kind of person each of you brings to the journey. A shared mission becomes distorted when one spouse is expected to provide the other with a permanent sense of worth, peace, direction, friendship, and healing. That is too much authority to surrender and too much weight to impose. Personal wholeness does not mean you need nobody. It is not emotional isolation wearing the costume of strength. It does not say, I can manage without you. Wholeness means I accept responsibility for my identity, my choices, my growth, and my emotional honesty. I can receive your love without making your performance the measure of my value. I can ask for support without assigning you responsibility for the person I must become. There are three positions here. Dependence says, you must hold me up. Independence says, I refuse to lean at all. Interdependence says, I will stand responsibly, receive your strength honestly, and offer mine freely. Healthy marriage permits real need. It welcomes comfort, counsel, friendship, correction, affection, and help. But mutual support is not mutual surrender of responsibility. Picture two pillars carrying one roof. Each pillar possesses strength of its own, yet neither exists only for itself. Their individual stability serves a shared structure. If one demands that the other carry all the weight, the entire structure becomes strained. If each refuses connection, there is no shared shelter. Strength without union becomes isolation. Union without responsibility becomes burden. Interdependence requires both. Marriage, then, is a union of gifts, not a transaction between two vacancies. Your spouse may encourage your healing, but cannot perform your inner work. Your spouse may affirm your worth, but cannot become its creator. Your spouse may walk beside you through confusion, but cannot make every decision that belongs to your conscience and growth. Love can accompany responsibility. It cannot replace it. And hear this compassionately. Discovering an unfinished area does not make you defective or unworthy of love. Every person enters marriage still growing. The issue is not whether something in you needs development. The issue is whether you will own that development or convert it into an accusation against your spouse. Complete these two statements privately, then discuss them without defense. I am responsible for bringing. Name the honesty, maturity, initiative, peace, or self-awareness you must contribute. Then complete, I must stop demanding that my spouse supply. Name one expectation you have turned into an impossible assignment. Keep that responsibility. Write it beneath your purpose clause. Secure identity answers who you are responsible to become. But identity claimed is not yet identity proven. Pressure will reveal whether your inner qualities can carry your promises. That brings us to character. Character is not reputation, charm, or the image a spouse presents when everything is easy. Character is practiced consistency between declared values and repeated conduct, especially when convenience offers an excuse. Embarrassment invites concealment, or frustration makes cruelty feel justified. It is who you keep becoming after the emotion of the moment has changed. A vow can name the future, but only character can repeatedly carry it. Say that contrast aloud. Promises describe intention. Character supplies capacity. Intention may be sincere. Capacity must be cultivated. Romantic performance can be impressive. Thoughtful words, memorable gestures, public affection, and emotional intensity may all have value. But none of them can substitute for truthfulness when honesty is costly, patience when progress is slow, discipline when desire changes, teachability when correction stings, responsibility when blame would be easier, and willingness to repair harm when pride wants to escape. We observed earlier that many people are drawn to marriage teaching centered on purpose, personal responsibility, and character rather than romantic performance. That interest does not prove relational success. It does, however, expose the question we must answer personally. Are we merely inspired by durable qualities, or are we practicing them? Think of a hidden load-bearing beam. Decoration may make a room attractive. Color, lighting, and furnishings may create immediate beauty. But when weight is applied, decoration cannot support the structure. Hidden strength determines what the room can carry. In the same way, chemistry may make a relationship attractive, but character determines whether trust can bear disappointment, delay, responsibility, and change. Now, do not turn this into perfectionism. Character does not mean flawless behavior. If flawlessness were the standard, nobody could become trustworthy. Mature character is revealed not only by avoiding failure, but by responding truthfully when failure occurs. It admits what happened without manipulating the story. It accepts responsibility without transferring blame. It makes restitution where appropriate. It changes the practice that produced the harm. An apology may acknowledge pain. Repair demonstrates that the acknowledgement has become action. So ask yourself, not your spouse, which quality in me becomes unreliable under pressure? Do I bend the truth, lose patience, abandon discipline, resist instruction, avoid responsibility, or delay repair? Select one. Do not choose 6 defects in the person beside you. Choose one quality in yourself that this marriage needs you to strengthen. Write a character clause for your constitution. To make our promises trustworthy, I will practice. Then name the quality and one repeated behavior that will develop it. Character grows through practice, not admiration. Purpose gives direction. Secure identity establishes personal responsibility. Character makes that responsibility dependable. Yet even 2 trustworthy people can become frustrated when nobody knows who carries what. The next agreement must therefore clarify roles. Character establishes trustworthiness. Roles give trustworthy character somewhere concrete to serve. Good intentions do not prevent resentment when necessary work remains unassigned, duplicated, or silently disputed. 2 responsible people can still disappoint each other because each assumed the other was carrying the same responsibility. So settle the governing distinction before assigning anything. Equal human worth does not require identical functions, and different functions do not establish superior worth. Function describes service, not significance. A role is a responsibility to serve the mission, not a title used to enlarge the self. What makes a role clear? 4 elements. First, the responsibility it carries. Second, the decisions it permits. Third, the information it requires. Fourth, the accountability attached to it. If I am responsible for an outcome but cannot make the ordinary decisions needed to produce it, I have been given blame without authority. If I make decisions but withhold the information you need, delegation has become exclusion. If nobody reviews the outcome, responsibility slowly becomes assumption again. Couples should not impose unsupported universal assignments upon every household. Consider ability, season, capacity, conviction, and mutual agreement. The spouse best equipped to coordinate something today may need support tomorrow. Illness changes capacity. Employment changes schedules. Caregiving changes availability. Wisdom does not worship a permanent arrangement merely because it once worked. Now build a role matrix. List finances, household operations, caregiving, schedules, extended family boundaries, spiritual practices, major purchases, and emergencies. For every area, answer 4 practical questions. Who is the primary coordinator? Which decisions require joint consent? What is the backup plan? When will we review the arrangement? Primary coordinator does not mean sole owner of reality. It means somebody ensures that the matter is noticed, organized, and advanced. Joint consent identifies the threshold beyond which one spouse must not act alone. A backup plan answers what happens when the coordinator is unavailable or overwhelmed. A review point keeps yesterday's agreement from becoming today's burden. Delegation must never become abandonment. Without this clarity, marriage can resemble 2 captains issuing directions at the same time while nobody checks the map. One calls, turn left. The other calls, turn right. Meanwhile, the household is very efficiently going in circles. That is not leadership. That is synchronized confusion. Ask yourselves, which recurring responsibility is presently unowned, duplicated, or silently disputed? Choose one, not every frustration accumulated since the wedding. Define its coordinator, authority, required information, joint consent boundary, backup, and review date. Then write the roles clause. We assign responsibility according to ability, season, capacity, conviction, and mutual agreement while preserving equal dignity and shared accountability. Roles organize service, they do not rank souls. Yet even a well-organized team will sometimes reach different conclusions. Once responsibility and decision rights are visible, the next question becomes unavoidable. What governs us when judgment, preference, or perception collides? Disagreement is not automatic proof that a marriage has failed. It is a test of what governs the marriage when two sincere people cannot reach the same conclusion. Roles create decision points. Conflict reveals whether those decisions are ruled by principle or captured by anger, fear, and pride. Peace is not the absence of disagreement. Peace is the presence of principles strong enough to govern disagreement. Silence may conceal resentment. Surrender may imitate agreement. Avoidance may postpone an argument without resolving its cause. Real peace permits difference while protecting truth, dignity, purpose, and accountability. There are two rooms a couple can enter during conflict. The first is a battlefield. On a battlefield, the objective is to defeat an opponent. Every weakness becomes useful, every admission becomes ammunition, and victory may leave both people wounded. The second is a council table. At a council table, the objective is not personal conquest, but wise resolution. Truth must be protected. Dignity must be preserved. The shared mission must remain larger than the immediate preference. So, establish the protocol before emotion begins making policy. First, pause escalation. A pause is not punishment or disappearance. It is an agreed interruption with a stated time to return. Second, name one issue. Do not summon every disappointment in the history of the relationship to testify in one argument. Third, separate observable facts from interpretations. This happened is different from this proves you never care. Fourth, restate the shared purpose affected by the disagreement. Fifth, let each spouse own a contribution without attaching an accusation. Sixth, agree on one specific action. Seventh, set a follow-up time to examine whether the action produced repair. Write those 7 movements down. Pause, name, separate, restate, own, act, review. A process does not remove emotion. It prevents emotion from becoming the only authority in the room. And the protocol requires boundaries. Contempt, threats, humiliation, intimidation, and the weaponizing of private disclosures are prohibited. These do not become acceptable because someone is angry. Coercion or violence must never be reduced to an ordinary communication problem or normalized as marital tension. Safety and appropriate outside support take priority over preserving the appearance of harmony. Reconciliation also does not require pretending agreement exists. Forgiveness language must not be used to erase accountability, remove necessary boundaries, or demand unsafe access. Peace tells the truth. Repair accepts consequences. Trust is not restored by pressure, but by conduct worthy of trust. Now ask yourselves, which step does our conflict habit most often omit? Choose that step and practice it on one unresolved issue. Then add this clause to your constitution. We will submit disagreement to truth, dignity, shared purpose, accountability, and repair. Say the final principle together. My spouse is not the enemy. The unresolved issue is the work. Once conflict is governed, the next question is allocation. Will our time, money, attention, and energy serve the purpose we claim? Conflict principles govern disagreement. Stewardship removes avoidable confusion before disagreement begins. Stewardship is not merely how a couple handles money. It is how they coordinate everything limited and useful entrusted to their care. Time, attention, energy, skills, opportunities, possessions, relationships, and access. Money matters, but money is only one resource competing for direction. A mission remains inspiring language until resources are placed behind it. You may say family matters, yet give the calendar only leftovers. You may say health matters, yet organize every week around exhaustion. You may say generosity matters, yet never create room to give. This is not an invitation to accuse one another. It is an invitation to alignment. The question is not, which spouse has failed? The question is, do our recurring decisions support what we agreed matters? Write this principle down. What a couple repeatedly allocates is where its stated purpose becomes visible or disappears. Intention tells what you admire. Allocation reveals what you are practicing. Make the invisible partnership visible with a household dashboard containing 4 columns: resource, priority, decision owner, and review rhythm. Under resource, name what is being managed. Under priority, identify what that resource must serve. Under decision owner, clarify who coordinates ordinary choices and where joint consent begins. Under review rhythm, Decide when the arrangement will be examined together. Now apply it. What spending threshold requires a conversation? Which calendar commitments may be accepted individually and which require agreement? How will rest be protected rather than treated as spare time? How will generosity be planned? Who coordinates caregiving demands? When must work pressure be discussed because it is consuming shared capacity? How will major opportunities be evaluated before excitement turns them into obligations? Do not copy another household's amounts or arrangements. Build agreements appropriate to your purpose, responsibilities, and present season. Use a simple rhythm. Inventory, rank, allocate, observe, revise. Inventory what is available. Rank what matters now. Allocate together. Observe the result in ordinary life. Then revise what is not serving the mission. Revision is not automatically evidence of failure. Capacity changes. Needs change. Opportunities change. A wise couple can alter an arrangement without turning adjustment into a moral trial. Transparency permits learning. Shame encourages concealment. So ask the stewardship question. Which resource category currently lacks shared visibility or agreement? Choose one. Put it on the dashboard. Assign its priority and decision owner. And establish a review rhythm. Then add this clause to your constitution. We will coordinate our resources transparently and allocate them according to our shared purpose, present responsibilities, and agreed priorities. Purpose becomes credible when it can be recognized in an ordinary week. And those ordinary weeks do more than manage the present. Repeated choices teach everyone within the household what matters, what receives care, and what deserves sacrifice. Stewardship practiced long enough becomes culture. Culture carried forward becomes legacy. Legacy is not merely what remains when a life ends. It is what a household keeps placing into the future while life is being lived. Property may be transferred. Reputation may be remembered. A final gift may be received. But the deeper inheritance is the pattern of values repeatedly modeled, corrected, celebrated, and transmitted. Every household teaches, even when nobody announces a lesson. It teaches through what receives praise, what is tolerated, what is repaired, what is protected, and what is offered to others. Family teaching grounded in values, discipline, example, care, and social responsibility gives us useful categories here. Values name what matters. Discipline makes those values repeatable. Example gives them credibility. Care directs them toward people. Social responsibility carries them beyond the household. So organize your culture around 5 questions. What do we honor? What do we practice? What do we correct? What do we care for? What do we contribute? Do not answer with attractive words alone. If you honor honesty, what happens when truth is costly? If you practice respect, what language is prohibited during frustration? If you correct irresponsibility, how is accountability joined with restoration? If you care for people, how does that care appear in attention, protection, and presence? If you contribute, what does the household consistently offer beyond its own comfort? Culture is like an imprint pressed into wet material. Repeated words and actions leave a recognizable shape. But listen carefully. Influence is real. Control is not absolute. A couple cannot guarantee every future choice or outcome. People possess agency, encounter other influences, and respond differently. Legacy is not the power to control descendants. It is the responsibility to make worthy values visible, credible, and available for them to carry forward. Your rituals are teaching. Your apologies are teaching. Hospitality teaches. Service teaches. Boundaries teach. Celebrations teach. Even your response to failure teaches whether mistakes are concealed, excused, punished without repair, or faced with truth and renewed practice. The Constitution may declare one value, while daily conduct demonstrates another. What is repeated will usually speak louder than what is framed. Now choose 3 to 5 values and attach each to visible behavior. Write your family culture statement in 5 lines. We honor truth by speaking honestly and correcting falsehood. We practice respect by protecting dignity in speech and decision. We correct harm through accountability, restitution, and changed conduct. We care for people through attentive presence, appropriate boundaries, and dependable help. We contribute through service, hospitality, and responsible participation beyond ourselves. Adapt the language, but keep the behaviors observable. Then add the legacy clause to your constitution. We will intentionally model, practice, correct, celebrate, and transmit the values we want our household to carry forward. Legacy is not waiting at the end. Legacy is occurring now. The future receives what the household repeatedly practices today. With this seventh agreement, the system is complete. Now the 7 agreements must be gathered into one written act of shared government. 7 agreements now become one covenant. Purpose directs, secure identity stabilizes, character supports, roles distribute responsibility, conflict repairs what disagreement exposes. Stewardship aligns limited resources with declared priorities. Legacy transmits the culture repeated inside the home. 7 functions, 1 shared life. But insight that remains unwritten can be admired today and forgotten under pressure tomorrow. So take 1 page and give your convictions a usable form. Begin with your 1-sentence mission. Together, we intend to build a home and life that. Beneath it, each spouse writes a personal responsibility statement and 1 character commitment. Then record your role and decision agreements. Who coordinates what? Where joint consent begins, and when an arrangement must be reconsidered. Add the peace protocol in its simplest form. Pause, name, separate, restate, own, act, review. Name the stewardship priorities that will govern your time, money, attention, and energy. Include your family culture statement and the practices that make its values visible. Finally, place a review date at the bottom. That is your 1-page marriage constitution. Now listen carefully. Do not manufacture agreement through immediate pressure. Each person should reflect privately before discussing the document together. Write what you honestly understand, what you can responsibly promise, and what still requires clarification. Then meet, compare, question, revise, and agree. Unity created by silence is not unity. A constitution must record shared conviction, not one person's language accepted to end the conversation. When the page is complete, read it aloud together. Hearing the words exposes vagueness and gives the agreement weight. Then ask, what must change first? Name 1 action, not 10 ambitions. Clarify 1 responsibility. Practice 1 missing conflict step. Align 1 resource. Establish 1 culture practice. Put that action on the calendar and schedule the next constitutional review before you finish. Where it is consistent with your beliefs, seal the decision in mutual prayer, not as a performance and not as a substitute for action, but as a shared acknowledgement that humility, wisdom, and strength will be required. This document is living, but it is not disposable. Seasons may change assignments, capacity, schedules, and priorities. Review allows wisdom to respond. Yet every passing mood must not receive permission to rewrite the principles. Adapt the application. Preserve the governing convictions. A marriage changes direction when shared convictions become written agreements and repeated practices. You are no longer merely discussing what a strong marriage should be. You are accepting the identity of builders who govern their partnership together. And now we return to love. Nothing here has diminished it. Love began the union, agreement gives it direction, character gives it credibility, roles give it coordination, peace gives it protection. Stewardship gives it practical expression. Legacy gives it a future. Love provides the desire to remain together. Practice principles help 2 people build a life worth remaining together for.